That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Alright guys, not going to lie, I was not planning on making these videos really anytime soon. Now y'all know I play in a few Devy leagues. Our original Flock Patreon league is actually a Devy league where you kind of have to know what's going on with future draft classes. And more importantly, other than those Devy leagues, you really just have to understand the value of rookie picks. And that's why I'm having to make this video. I mean, a few videos ago, I came out and I talked about the value of trading for those 2022 rookie picks and saying even if you don't like the class, you can flip them for a profit later this offseason. And I just had a million questions flooding in saying, Mason, talk about the class, talk about the quarterbacks, talk about the running backs, talk about the wide receivers. I'll maybe throw some screenshots on the screen to giving shout outs to everybody who asked for this video. If I can remember, we will see whenever I'm editing this a few hours later. But anyway, so that's what we are going to do. If y'all want to see the other positions, go down to the comment section, let me know, and let me know if you have any strong opinions, because I do not want to come out here and act like I'm an expert, act like I have strong analysis on any of these players. I just want to give a brief little overview on what we should be expecting with the 2022 draft class. But as always, you need to understand that these evaluations are going to drastically change with another season under the belt for every single one of these players we are about to talk about. I mean, the best example that I can give of this is a recent example where in those Devy leagues, Chuba Hubbard was a running back that was right up there ahead of Najee Harris and only behind Travis Etienne. And actually, a lot of people had him ahead of Travis Etienne in their future rankings. And one down season changed that, where Chuba Hubbard is in a completely different tier. And we see that every single season. So please take this with a grain of salt. Understand that this is not going to be extremely, extremely accurate compared to the conversations that we should have a year from now. But anyway, that's it. And for this video, let's focus in on the quarterback position, just because I think that's going to be the safest position to project a year out. And our first quarterback that we are going to be talking about is someone that's almost a guarantee to go first overall in next year's draft. And this is Sam Howell. And with Sam, he checks a couple boxes here. One, he was a 4-star prospect going into UNC. And secondly, he's actually kind of had the pedigree the entire time. We knew that he was a pro-style quarterback going into college, and in his true freshman season, he put up a very impressive year. And this kind of had him continuing to rise through the past 18 months in people's Devy rankings, where a lot of people, including myself, I mean, I wasn't necessarily going and aggressively targeting him. And in that original Flock Devy league, I believe Joseph actually drafted him last offseason, and I remember him drafting Sam Howell, and I believe it was ahead of Jordan Love, and it was ahead of Jalen Hurts. And I'm unsure if I went out and told him anything, but in my mind, I was definitely saying, oh man, I do not like that pick. I do not agree in the slightest. I think you're taking on way too much risk there. But Joseph kind of planted his flag based on the freshman season that they had from Sam Howell. And that call looked to be 100% correct, because going into his sophomore year, he was only able to improve in 2020. Where if we go from 2019 to 2020, he already had a very high adjusted yards per pass attempt in 2019, his true freshman season, at 9.7. And that bumped up to 11.1 in his sophomore year. And then his touchdown interception ratio, I know this wasn't necessarily a great improvement. If anything, it kind of scaled back a little bit from his freshman to sophomore year, going from 38 touchdowns to 30. And the interception staying the same at 7. But the overall passer rating also went through and drastically improved from 160 to 179.1. So here was Sam Howell. Not too much to talk about. I'll say how I prefer to try to evaluate these quarterbacks from a dynasty sense is I want to be completely honest in that I don't necessarily want to say that I can sit down, look at tape, and tell you exactly what quarterback is going to be successful, because nobody can do that. Not even NFL scouts, not even guys that are working for NFL franchises. They can't sit here and tell us who a foolproof prospect is going to be. But what we can do in Dynasty, and this is the number one way you get an advantage, you put your ego to the side. And we look at two separate things. We look at A, will this player get opportunity at the NFL level? Should he become an NFL starter? And B, should he have any rushing production if he does get that starting job? Because we know rushing production is going to be a cheat code in fantasy. And Sam Howell is 100% going to be a starter his rookie season in 2022. And he's very sneakily like a Joe Burrow and like a Trevor Lawrence, where by no means is he a Lamar Jackson type rusher, but he has some rushing potential where you could see him going out there and getting you 25, 30 rushing yards a game. And through the course of the entire season, that actually makes a pretty big difference. Well, let's go to our second quarterback that we are going to be talking about here. And this is someone that I'm not going to lie, I am rooting against him just because of my bias. This is going to be Spencer Rattler here. And Spencer Rattler, before he even took his first snap at quarterback for Oklahoma, I mean, he was the talk of the nation. I'm sure everybody here has heard of Spencer Rattler. Even my casual friends at Texas, they know who Spencer Rattler is, mainly because, obviously, OU is our biggest rival. But still, he had a ton of hype as a 5-star prospect. And there's no conversation right now about him being the first overall pick ahead of Sam Howell. But if you look across NFL mock drafts that are a year out, pretty much everybody has Spencer Rattler in that top 10 range, where we're definitely going to have to see improvement going into his second year as a full-time starter. But I think that should easily be projected for Spencer Rattler, where his first year as a starter, he came out and had 9.6 yards adjusted per pass attempt. He had 34 total touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and 172 passer rating. Now, obviously, this is for Oklahoma. Obviously, this is in the Big 12. But what I will say is, in this scheme, I mean, quarterbacks have found a ton of success translating their talent over to the NFL level. I mean, we have seen consistently Kyler Murray, Baker Mayfield, Jalen Hurts, and all back-to-back drafts come in and find success right away at the NFL level. So Spencer Rattler is going to need to show some signs of improvement this next year, but I think that we can safely say that he has the upside if he does improve. If he does take that next step up, which a lot of people are projecting for him, he should be a top 10 NFL draft pick, and he should check that box of definitely getting opportunity to start at the NFL level. And Spencer Rattler, I know a lot of people wanted to come out here and say that he was going to be some fantastic rusher. That didn't necessarily happen, but still at the same time, he was by no means just a stationary pocket quarterback. Spencer Rattler is going to be someone that should give you some rushing production, not a ton, but still going to be kind of like Sam Howell, where he can pick you up 25, 30 rushing yards a game, and that's going to be more than enough. All right, now our next quarterback that we are going to talk about, I simply have to bring him up just because he is being projected to be a top 10 NFL draft pick, and I don't understand why. But like I said, I'm not here trying to say that I am some next level quarterback evaluator. I am simply a guy looking at the statistics and understanding how dynasty values change when certain player prototypes get their opportunity. And right now with Slovis, I mean, he is coming in and he is kind of underwhelming if you check the box score. Where 2019, yes, he had an impressive season where he came out and posted a 9.4 adjusted yards per attempt. He had 30 passing touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and a 167 passer rating. But in 2020, we saw him take a significant step back where he came down to 17 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, only 7.4 adjusted yards per attempt, and a passer rating of 144. And now there are a few red flags that I'm looking at with this profile if we were just talking dynasty fantasy football value. First off, he is going to give you no rushing production in the slightest. I mean, you cannot expect anything. It's going to be Drew Brees, Tom Brady type level rushing production. And we know, while yes, if you are a historic passer and if you are one of the best quarterbacks of all time, you can get around that and you can still be elite in fantasy football. But if you're not, and you're just a slightly above average or average NFL passer, and you don't have that rushing production, what are you? I mean, you're like a Kirk Cousins. You're like someone that we do not want on our team at all. Like Alex Smith would be a good example. And another red flag that I'm looking at with this profile is the fact that USC was just straight up loaded with weapons. Where Amon-Ra St. Brown was a 5-star wide receiver prospect coming in. Drake London, their second leading receiver. Actually, I believe their first leading receiver this past season was a 4-star prospect. Then you have Tyler Vaughns, also a 4-star prospect. And then Bru McCoy. Oh my gosh. JN, I'm going to give you a shout out on this one. Bru McCoy, everybody that's a fan of Texas football knows everything you need to know about Bru McCoy. But anyway, he was a 5-star prospect also going to USC. So with Slovis, I mean, he had so many weapons around him, and to see the step back from 2019 to 2020, it's hard to get extremely excited about that type of profile, even if he does get the NFL draft capital. All right, now our next quarterback that I want to bring up had a very, very intriguing college career up to date, and this is going to be JT Daniels, where right now he's kind of projected all over the place if you're looking at mock drafts. Now, I'm sure a lot of people know who JT Daniels is, but if you don't, he was a 5-star quarterback prospect, one of the best players coming out of high school. He commits to USC, where he has a very disappointing freshman season. Then the next year, he tears his ACL, he tears his meniscus, and then the next year, he decides to transfer to Georgia, where he should be starting in 2021. But, I mean, this is another profile. I really, really don't like it. Because you pull up what he did as a true freshman, and I know, I mean, he was supposedly one of these quarterbacks that had all the traits that could develop into a quality NFL starter. But still, as a true freshman, 14 total touchdowns, 10 total interceptions, and under 7.0 adjusted yards per attempt. Those are disgusting numbers. And then I don't even really want to bring up 2020 too much because it was a very small sample. Where, yeah, in this small sample, I mean, he came out and had 11.3 adjusted yards per attempt, 10 total touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. But with JT Daniels, this is going to be a quarterback coming out that really does not have any rushing upside, even if he can come out and he can provide us some quality starts at the quarterback position, which is uncertain at this point. It's definitely going to be up to how he performs for Georgia in 2021. But even if he does become an NFL starter, I'm going to be very worried like I am with Slovis. So with JT Daniels, just going to be a player that I'm not too excited about. And now our next player is going to be Jayden Daniels, who right now is the quarterback for Arizona State. And he was actually a 4-star prospect coming in, and he was graded out as a dual threat quarterback. And if you look at NFL mock drafts, this is the current problem where he is not projected to go anywhere near the top of the first round. And we know if you are a back half of the round 1 selection in the NFL draft, or you fall outside of that, I mean, most likely you are not going to get your shot to start at the NFL level. But anyway, with Jayden Daniels, I'm going to be looking at him kind of as a poor man's Jalen Hurts, where he's a good rusher. So if he does get that second round NFL draft capital, and then he ends up falling to maybe the 3rd, 4th round of Superflex leagues, yeah, I'll be loading up on a ton of Jayden Daniels, just because while he may not check the box of a guaranteed starter at the NFL level, what he will check the box of is he will check the box of providing us rushing production if he does get those starts. And we know that is crucial if you want to have access to really any type of ceiling in the fantasy football game in 2021, just because we see the Dak Prescott, we see the Russell Wilson, we see the Kyler Murray, the Josh Allen, the Patrick Mahomes. I mean, so many quarterbacks that can provide you rushing and passing at the same time. But yeah, anyway, let's end it here. Let's not talk about anybody else. If y'all enjoyed the video and y'all want to hear more about this 2022 draft class, let me know down in the comment section below. And yeah, also let me know by smashing that like button, subscribing to the channel. Y'all know what to do. And that's it. I'll see y'all with the video tomorrow.